Namaste. It's been quite some time now. I get a lot of these questions asked about various topics, inquiries from the aspects of things such as we try to navigate our way in the world. And so what I thought it would be pertinent to do would be to just touch just briefly on each of those topics that I get sent to me, and maybe as we go through other programs on the series that I'll be able to expand more so. So here we go. The first one is around the base of, or the topic of fear. This topic is centered around fear. I think when we talk about fear, it's important to realize and understand that fear comes from various perspectives based on the self. We have fear of what we might say, how it would affect me based on my actions. We are fearful of the dangers ahead. We are fearful of how we might look, how we may appear to others, how we may view ourselves, and how others may look at us based on our success or our failures in life. And of course there's the fear of the noteworthy aspect of dying. I guess having the most fear is obviously essentially a perspective. It's conjured up from one aspect, one major aspect, and that's from the essence and the sense of the self, how we view ourselves, how we wish to appear in front of others, and also the fact that we may die eventually, which we don't know when that's going to happen. Having been dead before and passed over and come back, all I can really say at this point is that there's nothing to be afraid of. I don't remember being dead, although I do remember being quite conscious in a realm that it's almost indescribable, it's unexplainable, and it's awesomely powerful and beautiful. The essence of love is there, and there is no fear there once you are there. So I think fear is something that we cannot tuck under a mat, but we can also allow ourselves just to trust in our journey, that provided that we come from a place of love, everything we always will know will work out, all is well. Fear is, how we might put it, is indiscriminate if we allow it to rule our life. And supposedly if we allow that fear to control ourselves in such a way that it entraps us and encompasses that part of our life stream where we want to live happily, live joyfully, live blissfully, that if we don't allow ourselves to live as that, in that space of who we are, that truth of who we are, we waste our life, and our life of course is so very short. So one of the greatest protectors that we can have in our life is to embody the soul nature of faith. I think faith is so misunderstood in our lives that we take it for granted that faith doesn't really work. It's just something that's airy-fairy, it's make-believe, and that it doesn't really come true. But I think that is the journey of learning about faith, and that if we understand also what the love encompasses, It encompasses a far great deal more than falling in love. It encompasses more than what we see in our own self-love. It really encapsulates the knowing that love is within, and it's also in the outer world of where we bring ourselves to know that if we come from a love place, from the seeds that we plant in our lives that come from love, all that will produce ultimate goodness. I think the trappings that stifle us in our journey to live a happy and joyful life is made extenuatingly confrontational in our lives. It creates a barrier in our lives where we tend to live in this fear space, but knowing that for every 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days that we live in this fear and this worry, or what we call the ego state, we don't allow ourselves to make the most of that time to be just joyful, faithful, living in faith, living in love, and just being happy ourselves, because we don't really have that much time on the earth, as we know. Some of us have these amazing ideas when we're young that we're never going to grow old because we're still young. By the time we're 20, we're just about to start our journey of this is where I now need to gain my success, and this is putting so much pressure onto ourselves that we need to find the great alchemy of what success incorporates. But we lose the side of what happiness incorporates, our own personal happiness incorporates. And I think that if we listen more intuitively from a place where our heart speaks to ourselves in a way that we don't have that fear of allowing ourselves, whether you're male or female, we can allow our wings to fly and to follow our passions no matter what other people say. Again, because life is so short, we want to live our life to the very end, fully expired, knowing that we have lived a full life, that we have lived a life that we don't hold any regrets of the I wish I could have, I wish I should have done this, and I wish I could have been this kind of a person. And when we have all these regrets that we hold, the I wishes, I could have, I should have, I must do, they are all non-negotiable paths that we take and that we must ensure that we hold on to from our youth onwards, because by the time we get into our later years in our life, it becomes too late. So rather than waiting until we finally realize that we've come to this place of I've reached consciousness, or if we end up finding ourselves rotting in an old person's home, we don't want to hold all those regrets. We want to be fully expired, fully fulfilled, and being able to live our life in such a way that we can teach others that this is how it's meant to be, this is how our life is. It's not about living in a box. It's most definitely not about listening to those who say you must go to university and you must get a degree, you must get a higher degree, a PhD, a doctorate, which is indoctrination. You have to work hard to be a success, and that again is all about mind control. It's about putting an enormous amount of pressure and energy, and it's about subjugating oneself to appease those whom we listen to. So again, faith is a journey that must be taken to know the true deep elements of what this beautiful aspect of our life is being able to trust, being able to have as much respect for ourselves and our knowing and our intuitive knowing that we can make decisions for ourselves based on our heart vibration, our frequency that we emit, that tells us this is the path I want to journey. Because I don't want to be imprisoned in a career or a job that only provides me enough money to put food on my table, to put petrol into my car, and to be able to do that again the following day, waking up to an alarm clock, and it just becomes so robotic, it becomes so monotonous. And I think if we fall into that trap of everything starts to repeat itself day by day, we have only ourselves to wake ourselves up. Because as I see it, we can look for gurus, we can look for teachers, we can look for this essence they call God outside of us, but to know the truth of that God essence is actually us. It's each one of us holds that key. And that being the case, knowing that if that is so, then we have that power to be able to navigate our way through our lives, knowing that we can live a loving life, a more fulfilled life, a life where we can enable ourselves to teach our next generation, whether they're children or whether they're our own children, to be able to grow up being able to express themselves without the worry that we place on them, that they themselves become fearful and indoctrinated and living in that mind control box that obviously we see everywhere, that the world seems to be caught into that trap. Love. I think the topic of love has been I think people are wanting to know just a little bit more after reading my first book, Beyond the Horizon, Into the Light and Return from Death, where I describe I guess simplistically that when I travelled there, that I had never felt love before, quite as much as what I experienced and felt and saw there. Upon coming back to the earth, I had never forgotten what it was like. I definitely didn't forget that feeling of what it was like, and it was like a washing machine when I came back, because it was tumultuous, to say the least. That when I woke up from the coma, I seemed to see with a lot more clarity what it was like to see people always in a rush, always having to be somewhere, always needing to get ahead, living with so much fear in their lives that they forgot that aspect of, I believe, what we were meant to live as timeless individuals, as timeless beings. And what I thought it was probably a good mission in that respect to coming back was, you know, we hear of this saying, heaven on earth. I think being able to have gone there and returning back, that mission had become more coherent in myself, is the fact that no matter how tormented the world appeared to me, it was just like a garden that was filled with weeds and rubbish and garbage and trash, that no matter how bad it was going to be, it was up to me to be able to clean as much of it as I possibly could, and to teach more about this dimension of love, which is it's an ongoing journey. Because what I mean by that is that we have fallen or taken hostage of ourselves by the mere fact that we've put love aside, we've put faith aside, we've put living a joyful life aside to get ahead, to make money. And money doesn't give us happiness whatsoever, as many of us know. It's a very temporary thing. It's what I call a perishable, because when we use it up, we need to go back and work hard. So we're exchanging time for money. And but when we remove time from our life, when we move money from our lives, and to being able to follow our heart, we then are able to live from a place of love. So when we speak of love, you know, especially for the guys out there, for all the men, I think it's important for them to understand that it's got nothing to do with love coming from the divine feminine. It's not anything to do with being flossy. It's or being unmasculine by being loving. The role of love being expressed from a man is a very important, and it's a very rare quality that the world is definitely looking for. It's got nothing to do with strength. It's got nothing to do with macho. It's more to do with being able to allow the male masculine to express themselves in their own natural way, but also with a sense of knowing that they can be affectionate, they can be emotional, they can allow themselves to show caring, not just to think caring, but to being able to embrace others, even other males, especially other males, to be to relinquish, I guess, the chains and the armory that this false ideal about what a male should be. From a female perspective, the female finds it very easy to being able to express themselves from their heart. There are versions of a female who can show signs of their masculinity also, equally as so as that there are males that are also adept in being able to find their female aspect in themselves also. There seems to be a slight crossover there, but in part there is a feature where there is a clear male dominant aspect of their essence, and there is a female dominant in their essence of their femininity. But from here on, I think it's important to understand that love is a process. Love is something that you don't discover when we fall in love or when we get married, and that's it. Because what we tend to find is that love becomes a grind. It becomes a crux, that we've achieved this alchemy of attainment when we do fall in love and we get married, but that's not the case. Love is a process, and it is always something new about love, that it reveals ourselves more and more when we when we come to a beautiful place like this stream here, we find that essence of purity and love here. We find love in music and creations. We find love in our insects, in the birds here, and we find love in so many different spheres of our lives that it becomes something that's beyond us. So another topic is the topic of personal power. How do I know that I've achieved that level of personal power? I'm not perfect, so all I'm doing is being able to express from having the experience of going somewhere and coming back and having all my beliefs and conditioning erased. But I'm definitely not saying to believe me in any sense of the word. How I was meant to be, because I was free. I was able to live in an endowed world of being soulfully liberated. So when it comes from a place of personal power, or knowing a little bit about what personal power could very well be, is knowing that we can feel safe in our aloneness. I think too often in this modern technological age we find is that we need to have someone with us to feel empowered. We need to have our technology, our iPads close at hand to know that we're not alone. That again is another trap, and it's going to be more encompassing as a trap as our lives go on and into the next generation. Also, we begin to forget who we are as adequate, powerful, soulful beings. So to being able to find that personal power, personal meaning ourselves, power meaning tapping into the source and the knowledge of wisdom that we hold from a soulful stream. We see the beauty in ourselves, we see the creativity emanating from our soul, and we feel quite safe in our aloneness. One of the things that we do is we do these retreats where we take people out into the wilderness, and we don't have Wi-Fi, there is no electricity there. All we do is immerse those that come onto the retreat into the wilderness, which is in a rainforest, by a lake or by a river, something as beautiful as what we have here. And we then start addressing those aspects of that fear element again. I mean, even before people think about coming on a retreat, immediately I get the odd question from others that will say, does it have hot water? Does it have comfortable beds? Does it have a shower? In other words, does it have all these luxuries that we have in the world of they call civilization, but it's actually uncivilization? Do we have all those comforts there? And I say, well, no, not really. This is part of what this retreat is all about. Because unleashing our personal power means being able to know that comfort and security are a trap. The more comfortable and secure we are in our world, the less adventurous we become, the less unknowing we are when it comes to connecting to the source of nature and with the waters, the streams, and being on our own. So if comfort and security are our greatest traps that create mankind, humanity, society, the individual to feel the state of I'm secure, they lose the ability to become adventurous. And adventure, harmony, wisdom comes when you are not comfortable. Comfort is so false, and so when we go into nature and we spend 5, 6, 7 days, even longer in the wilderness, it becomes really heartening to know that when they come out of these retreats, that they think, wow, this was the most amazing experience that I've ever done before. In saying that, that is only step one, because what I would like them to be able to do when they do come back is being able to not so much do long periods, but even a few days. I've done 18 days alone in the wilderness, and experiencing that length of time, it didn't feel like it was 18 days. I didn't feel bored at all. In fact, I was feeling more fulfilled in the sense that I was getting so much source energy from nature and from my own self-empowerment, that I could survive out there quite comfortably, that I want to be able to pass that knowledge on to others, where we can do a couple of days as a group and then set them out on their own and help them to put their tent up, to know that they're going to be completely safe, and just to leave them there for 2 nights, maybe more, all by themselves. The next question I get is about change. The other one is about finding clarity. Change is what we are meant to be on this earth to be, to live, to experience. Again, this is an element of this world where we wake up to the alarm clock, we eat breakfast, we go to work at the same time, we come home at the same time, we have the television on, and we sit in front of the TV and go to bed at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and we do the same thing over and over again. It becomes very monotonous. I don't know how people can live like that, but if we understand that we are here to experience more and more diverse, timeless experiences in our lives each day, we become more aware and more open to even more excitements and more fulfilling in our lives, that gives us a lot more awareness and more perspective about who we are as soulful beings. So when we face these challenges, when we face these fears that again are all they are is false experiences or expectations appearing real. They're all false. If we can just look at them and be able to walk through them, we can then realize that, wow, that was actually quite achievable. Another question is on the topic of heaven, or Jannat, or Nirvana. I don't really give it a name, because again, it's a human construct that we were raised to give this place in the beyond, in the afterlife, which again is another continuation of our life, our existence, of our consciousness. That facet of when we do leave the earth, whatever we might call it, all I can say about this place is that there is no politics, there is no money, there is no symbolism there, and being raised as Māori, we have again our culture, you know, which is a very important part of us on the earth. Likewise with other cultures, other monastic religions and cultures, or whether they be atheists, wherever we came from or come from, what became more compounding to me was that there was nothing of that aspect in this place. Our Māori people wear traditional clothes, we also wear westernized clothes, and there was nothing of that sort there that I remember. But again, all I can say is that you go to a place of sincere safety, sincere reverence. There is no aspects of wanting to get ahead. There is no aspects in ourself where we need to go and make money, that we're ruled by time, that we have to be somewhere or to be somebody. But it's quite the opposite. It's timeless. To me it felt like that I was there for, as I talk about in my book, in my first book, that it felt like I was there for months. And people say to me, but you were only gone for 25 minutes. Well, maybe so. And there was a period of time also when I was lying in the bed in a coma that we cannot put time to it. And it felt extraordinarily timeless, to the point that everything there where I was with those whom I loved, including my son, Tāne, and my grandparents and aunties and so forth, who didn't look old or sick. They all looked incredibly young, incredibly healthy, incredibly light-filled, and with no ego, because they had been washed, cleansed from all of that was, I guess, imparted to them on the earth, but it wasn't in this place. So the love that was emanating from this realm was beautifully symbolized by the fact that I did not need to have to be anywhere else. The only time that I saw snippets of my earth life that I'd left behind was the point where I was seeing my children at my bedside crying at my body, lying in the coma, or seeing myself being resuscitated by the paramedics on the floor during that time when my heart did stop. But then I would return back to this heavenly realm again, and just enjoy the essence and the beauty and the timelessness of this all-encompassing power of love. That when I finally did come back, I wanted to be able to share that with those around me, that this is what I want to see on the earth. Another aspect I get asked is what nature shows us. I think one of the most beautiful and powerful aspects about nature is that there's no desire to being like somebody else that we see in the media and Instagram. I don't have Instagram. I don't have a mobile phone, but I see people that are always looking at their phones constantly, and it's almost like they're living in the future. What it is that they're looking for, I don't know, because you can look a month, a year down the track, and they're still looking. So how do we find clarity is being able to discover the I suppose the gem or the crown and the jewels, that learning the art of being present and being able to live in this state of purity, of truth, because there is no such thing as the future. Future doesn't come, because when the future does come, it becomes the present. And conversely, the world is gathering what we might say baggage about all the mistakes and the foibles, the errors that they've made, the things that they wish that they shouldn't have done and had done, and that becomes another stamp, a dark stamp on their life, and they carry that in a way that it becomes a burden on their shoulders. And the beauty about animals is that they don't carry any of the weight, the heaviness of what they've done in the past. And so the way that animals live is being able to utilize more their own soulful energy and their not too indiscreet wisdom, by knowing that there is no future, there is no past. All there is the ability to being able to maximize more about enhancing their state of being able to live in the now, into this state of truth and pureness and voluptuous understanding that all that matters, that there is, relies solely in this state of awareness and this period of now. When we lose that state of who we are and our personal power, we fall into this luring of worrying about what the future might hold, or we might find ourselves thinking more about our past and what's occurred in our past, and that becomes more of living in the victimized and feeling in a victim state, of which again sabotages our power. So if we have the knowing that if we erase this horrible entity of overthinking, over and analyzing life with too much thought, again, if we can rid ourselves of that, then we can live a state of harmony and impureness that only nature here can offer. All they do is they live entirely in the present. Here's a car coming. What nature tends to show us is that animals don't carry any fears about what the future might hold for them. They don't carry any grudges, they don't carry any embarrassment or shame on what they might have done in the past. They only live in the future. Sorry, I made a mistake.